Welcome back. Let's bring in my panel. Pauline Hanson's Chief of Staff, James Ashby, and columnist with The Spectator, Terry Barnes. Gents, welcome. I'll start with Adam Bandt. He's told The Guardian that a Labor-Greens minority government would bring about what he calls a golden era of progressive reform, confirming that his party's main focus is stopping Peter Dutton from being elected. However, Labor doesn't seem to share his vision. They're so worried about the threat posed by the Greens, they've hired an agency, a very Labor agency, to help them campaign against them. This is the Shannon Group. It does a lot of the ads for the union super funds. They've been brought in, so says the Australian Financial Review today, to stave off the challenge from the Greens in Labor's inner city battleground seats. Now, James, help me square this circle. I find it baffling. So Labor's going to spend millions and millions of dollars on an ad strategy to defeat the Greens, but then share preferences with them to keep them in the parliament. Figure that out for me.
Yeah, the golden era. It sounds more like a catchphrase from Xi Jinping from China. It's frightening, actually. The language is very frightening from the Greens ahead of this election. You're right. It's going to be one of the biggest spends we'll see in the history of Australian federal campaigns. This will be the last election they're allowed to basically go willy-nilly with their spending. But you're 100% right to say that Labor are in bed still with the Greens. They talk a big game of suggesting they don't want to be in Parliament with them. But the truth is the preference arrangement is done with the Greens. Instead of saying we're going to put them last and be disciplined like One Nation have been, we always say now, put Labor and the Greens last. But instead, Labor are actually rewarding the Greens here. Sorry, that's my little dog with me. And it's a real concern to any Australian. We've got big problems ahead because if the Greens do share that balance of power, we're going to end up in a situation where we'll get death duties returned. They might promise all these flash things and little trinkets here and there, but at the end of the day, someone's got to pay for it, and we know who that will be. It'll be the average working person, and there'll be sacrifices made from pensioners out there just to satisfy the Greens who'll have that balance of power. Don't do it. Give the balance of power to a party like One Nation. We'll work with the coalition.
Terry, if Labor put the Greens last on their preference deals, you'd probably knock off, I think, at least 3. I think Bandt might hang on in the seat of Melbourne. There's currently 4 Greens in the House of Reps. I reckon 3 would go. I mean, if Labor's serious, if the Prime Minister's serious, he'd do that, wouldn't he?
Well, if he had any decency and principle when it comes to dealing with an anti-capitalist, anti-Semitic mob like the Greens, absolutely he should. And certainly the coalition's got the right idea, just as One Nation has in putting the Greens last. And look, if Labor did that, there might be a bit of, one seat goes one way, one seat goes the other way. But really, we're talking about exactly as James said. Do we want chaos pulled to the left by this absolute rabble of a mob? We don't. And it's, look, Labor and Anthony Albanese may play games with this. They may play footsie with Adam Bandt, but we all lose.
We've got what I reckon, James, is a resurgence in Australia Day. Peter Dutton even saying he's open to legislation to protect our National Day on the 26th of January. But we've still got a whole lot of big corporations allowing workers to decide if you don't like Australia Day, if it triggers you, pick another day, take another day off, have that as your public holiday. We're talking about Telstra, we're talking about the entire public service, Commonwealth Bank, Aussie Super. Come on, I mean, we're either for our National Day and we're patriotic, or we're not. This is fence sitting.
Well, it is good to hear that Peter Dutton has taken the same principled approach as Pauline Hanson and One Nation have, and we've always backed Australia Day. Never changed that date. In fact, we should lock it in, a discussion maybe at the next election of a referendum at the same time. Ask Australians, do you want it locked in? We know already through the IPA, 69% of Australians support Australia Day. I don't want to see it go. The only time Labor care about Australia Day is when it comes to penalty rates. If you mess with their penalty rates, they'll have something to say. But in the meantime, they just let these corporates, the woke corporates, get away with it. And unfortunately, we've got too many of them that control, like take, for example, Telstra. Unless you're on that network these days, it's pretty patchy out there, especially since 3G went. So where do you go to if you want to try and punish these companies? There's no real pushback that Australians have other than to get out in force on Australia Day and show these woke companies that we do give a damn and we love Australia and we're quite happy to celebrate it on the 26th.